Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who can't really figure out what she wants. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Yes. We are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. But we do have really good life experience when it comes to being queer.
We do.
And like moving through life, you know, making queer decisions, which I'm foreshadowing for the actual letter because there wasn't any mention of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Pride, everyone.
It's like, yeah. It's like this person's having a hard time making decisions. Internalized homophobia, internalized heteronormativity. There's a lot. I felt like since it's June, we got to hit the nail on the head.
We do. We absolutely do. We're going to be coming at it from all directions this week. So just wait till Friday's episode, friends.
Okay, so this is all to say Sam and I are not professionals. We're not trained in any of this. So please take our advice as you see fit. We are only here to offer our humble and queer musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. Speaking of the queer experience, man, it has been a hot minute since I've done a totally unrelated tangent on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited. Where are we going with this?
I don't know how often you want to watch children's movies, but
I do sometimes.
My child and I watched Luca last night or a couple nights ago.
I hear it's real. It reads as real gay.
It is so gay, and I wanted to tell you about it because you can take the girl out of the English degree, but you can't take the English degree out of the girl. I want to write like a whole paper on how it's an allegory for not just the queer experience, but like the non-binary experience, because there's definitely these two boys that have this like queer friendship or queer coded experience, but one of them is different than the other one. And there's some conflict and friction over that. And whatever. For the people who don't know what I'm talking about, it's two sea monsters. Who want to live on land. It's a kids movie. And then it's all about like them. I don't know. I loved it. And I was like, I got to tell Sam about this.
Great. I'll watch it.
Yes.
I don't think I have Disney Plus.
No, I don't think you will ever watch it, but I will tell you to watch it.
Next time I'm in Albany, you'll sit me down and we'll watch it together, just like Frozen 2.
Yes, exactly. Our love is not fragile. Okay, here we go. It is Monday, so in addition to that tangent of nothingness, we're going to do a quick check-in topic inspired by a letter. It's from Average Allie, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from South Florida. Basically, she's 28. She's been with her boyfriend for 5 years. They're both 28, and they haven't had much issues over their 5 years. But her biggest complaint is he doesn't share her on his social media. Like, she's not an influencer or anything, but she has a social media presence, and she enjoys the satisfaction of posting her life for her friends and family and for herself to like look back on. But her boyfriend does not and will not post pictures of her on all the platforms. And he'll even like post Snapchat. First of all, who's still using Snapchat? I'm so disconnected. Anyway, but he'll post Snapchats during like their trips or the outings, and he skims his surroundings, but then stops his videos before she's visible in them, which is like, it's just so really funny. Bold. Yeah. Anyway, so she's mentioned multiple times that it bothers her, but nothing has changed, you know? And the other thing that like irks her is that there is proof of his long-term ex-girlfriend on his Facebook. And it's like, she's over here like, what about me? 5 years is a long time. Anyway, so I thought we could check in about sharing your partner on social media and the parameters of that and how to like weed through some of the feelings that come with that. And then we could also answer this letter specifically because I've got some feelings about it.
For sure. So I should talk about my social media experience? Is that is that the question you asked?
No, that is not what I'm... general. Sam doesn't have social media right now, which is what they're making a joke out about. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, as somebody who is like pretty private, I I have a podcast that lots of people listen to where I talk about my sex life. But also, like, I can understand the impulse to not want to post your significant other on social media, especially like in the early phases of the relationship, right? Where it's like, well, you know, what if we break up and then I have to go through and like decide if I want to delete all this stuff or whatever, you know, like whatever it might be. 5 years is like a long time. Like by the 5-year mark, I was definitely posting pictures of Peter because we were married.
Yeah, so, and you're like in each other's lives.
Yeah. So like 5 years feels like a long time. Like it does feel like there's like a grace period of like, yeah, okay, maybe we're not at a point yet where we want to do this, but it does feel like there's a point at which it's like, what are you doing?
Why
the
not?
Internet would say that this man is not fully committed and that he's like has side pieces everywhere, right? Like that's what Reddit would say. But like,
but that's not. No, that's what Google would say. Reddit is a place of honesty and just kidding.
It's like, no, babe.
I love Reddit. Okay, but
I do too. But I'm like, sometimes I'm go on there and I'm like, Jesus Christ, everyone, calm down. Like, what is happening?
So I think in general, I will say that I have come to learn to check my anxiety at the door and recognize that everybody has a different relationship to social media than I do, or, you know, that we're all unique, right? And I think the first thing I'll just say is, and the thing I would say to myself if I was feeling the same anxiety is, can I approach this with curiosity before prescribing a sense of panic or prescribing something to this that makes it mean something that it isn't, you know? The curiosity might lead you to, I don't really like when people share their relationships online. It makes me uncomfortable, or it's cringy, or whatever. Or the curiosity might lead you to, oh man, I shared my girlfriend a lot on Facebook, and then I had to deal with looking at our life all together, and now it feels weird, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm just private, or whatever. Like, or it's, I don't want to post you because I don't want my side bitches to know that you're there. You know, like, I'm not saying that you won't, I'm not saying you'll like what you find all the time, or that you'll agree with it, or that it'll make sense to you. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to fucking take a video of your locations and stop it at your girlfriend. But I'm going to approach it with curiosity before I'm going to approach it with a sense of this is a red flag or something wrong, you know?
Yeah. Also, like, I would totally do the thing where I'm like, I skim and then I stop my surroundings, because I'm like, I'm trying to show you the surroundings, not like this person that I'm with. So
yeah, totally.
I can understand. And also I'm like, but this, like, some sort of conversation needs to happen here. Right. And I think you're exactly right that like people have different understandings of social media. And so one of the things we have to do is get curious about it. Like, in the same way that we have to establish all sorts of different rules for our relationship, because we can't just assume that everyone has the same definition of what cheating is, or the same definition of what sex means, or whatever it might be. We have to do it with social media too, right? Because as much as we like to shit on social media, and I'm a shitter on her, right? Like, I don't like social media, but I also recognize that it is like an integral part of people's identities and experiences of the world. And so like, it's really valid for us to need to have some curious conversation about like, what are we agreeing to when it comes to social media? And is that okay or not okay for me, right? And am I able to flex or not flex given what other people want, right? And again, it feels so silly because it's like we cast social media as being like inherently self-indulgent, right? So it's like, oh my God, are you really going to like break up with this guy because he won't post a picture of you on his Instagram, right? But it's also like, but that's not the thing we're talking about. Like, what we're talking about is like, this is making you feel a type of way, understandably. And he's either dismissing or like not tending to the thing that you're expressing to him, right? And that at the bottom, like when we get down to it, is like the issue here, right? Like, that's the problem.
Yes. And I also want to say, again, like, taking this conversation way farther than it needs to go. But that's what we do here at JBU. We either talk about it to death, or we talk about something totally unrelated, like Luca. I want to say
little queer sea monsters. I can't wait.
It is literally, it's so charming. Okay, so I do want to say to the letter writer specifically, towards the second half of the letter, she writes basically, it sounds so silly to complain about such things at our age, but it continues to bother me. And she doesn't know how to handle that feelings of bothersome, And I will say, it can mean as much or as little to you as you want it to. And if you're going to decide, this means something to me, but I don't want to end my relationship over it, or it means something to me, I don't understand why my partner does this, I've asked him repeatedly, and also he's not changing his mind. What I'm trying to get at is you might have to make the uncomfortable decision to make this a bigger deal to you, or you have to make the uncomfortable decision to say, man, I wish my partner would share me more on social media, but he is bringing other things that I value more to my life. I say this because I think as our relationships mature and as we are in longer and longer committed partnerships, it's not about settling, and it's not about forgoing your own needs, but it's about putting those needs in perspective to how you are being fed in other ways, right? Does he make you feel good about yourself? Are you introduced to his friends and family? Do you guys share quality time together? Does he listen to your other needs? I don't know. This can be it, right? This can be, wow, this is really bothering me, and it makes me feel really weird that you stopped right before me in a video. That feels so intentional. I'm curious about that. Tell me about that, And then you do with what you want. You can do with, how am I going to say that? Whatever you find from that curiosity, you can do with as you see fit.
For sure. Yeah, I'm curious if he posts other people on his social media as well, right? Or if it's just that he doesn't post people anymore, which is you know what I mean? Where there's so much that could be going on here that we don't have enough details for. But that's I think what we're trying to get at, which is that we need to just not assume that we know what this means, and instead start to get really curious about what's happening.
I'm saying that thing about deciding how much you want this to matter to you, because my wife is not on social media, but I'm imagining if she did have a social media account and she didn't share me and our life in the way that I share us and our life, which is very little these days, but I would be will you share more? And she is inherently a much different person online than I am. And I would have to decide to ask her to be a different person, or I would accept her for who she is. Granted, I trust that my wife is very proud to be my wife. And that's what wound this is triggering for me secondhand is why are you hiding me? Why are you cutting off the video?
Absolutely. My husband doesn't share about me on social media. He just shares cat memes and horror movies. Yeah.
He shares the cat that you brought into the marriage.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, Todd. He's a delight.
He is a delight. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a good ending point for that. Let's get into today's letter. I feel like we've already talked too much. I should have never brought up Luca. I threw off the whole vibe.
Okay, let's get into today's letter. Today's letter comes from Slightly Sad and Confused, whose pronouns are she, her, who's writing from The Void. Dear Sam and Sierra, I'm a big fan of the podcast and could really use your help deciding whether I should pursue a relationship with someone or date other people. I'm a 30-year-old woman in Jersey City and met my romantic interest, a 34-year-old woman, she, her, named Rachel, at a happy hour for a women's yoga club 3 months ago. I usually date men and was only going there to make friends. She was one of the people I connected with and joined a group chat with for a small group of us to reconnect and do other fun things in the city. Rachel is a lesbian, though I didn't learn this, or rather it didn't come up until the third time we hung out. We became friends and I got the feeling that she liked me romantically and I liked her too, but I wasn't quite sure, and I figured she might just be eager to be friends with me because she was new to the city and still trying to make new friends. About 6 weeks in, after hanging out every weekend and talking on the phone during the week, I told her that I liked her, but that it wouldn't make sense for us to date because I'm not out, and I am not sure that I would want to be with a woman long term. And while I might eventually be open to that, it wouldn't be a great way to start a relationship. She said that she liked me too and would be open to dating me, everything considered, but that she understood and she was fine just being friends. So we decided to still be friends and just not talk on the phone every day. 3 weeks ago, she left for a 2-month work trip. We still talk every couple days or so. I still really like her. I was actively dating and I still go on dates with guys here and there from apps or talking to people at parties. I don't really doubt I'd be able to meet a guy that I like if I tried. We caught up yesterday and she's in town for a couple days before heading back out for work. It made me sad because it was an uncomfortable reminder that we're not in a romantic relationship, and maybe in my head I made it more than what it is. I don't even know if she likes me romantically anymore. I would just ask her if she wants to date or be in a relationship, but she's still out of town for another month, and part of me still wants to date other people, and I'm not sure if I would want to be with a woman long term. I might be open to it. I even came out to my mom last week. I didn't expect a bad reaction. So that if Rachel and I were ever to date, that would already be done. Still, I've usually dated men and always pictured myself with a man. Part of me still wants that. What should I do? And how do I figure out what I want? Do I need to just spend a couple days alone thinking about it? Or do I need to actually be experiencing life, dating men and women, seeing how I like them and how things go with them? And where does this leave me and Rachel? Thank you. Slightly sad and confused.
Oh, my darling, thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this letter. I want to just start by saying I know that some people might have conflicting feelings around the idea of like being able to envision yourself with a certain type of person or not, you know, like how you say you've sort of always pictured yourself with a man, and so you're struggling to picture yourself with a woman. And I want to say that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that we are taught at a very young age, subconsciously or very intentionally, about what partnership looks like, what normalcy looks like, what our relationship escalator will look like. And, you know, I was like thinking about Luca when Sam was talking. And I was reading online reviews that are like, why does it have to be a gay allegory? Why can't it just be about two boys, or whatever? And somebody responded and was like, it's sad that we can't think about young queer relationships as innocent and pure the same way that we can think about, whatever. Anyway, literally, I need to make this connect to the point that I was trying to say so that this isn't just an episode about Luca. But what I'm trying to say is,
you should do like a special watch along of Luca or something.
Yes. What I'm trying to say is we've watched literally thousands and thousands of pieces of media that represent heteronormativity, period. Right. And so it makes a lot of sense to me, a fellow queer person, a fellow bisexual, I'm not sure if you use that word exactly, but that you don't have a long-term vision that doesn't reflect that heteronormative teaching that we have been, taught since we were very little. And I think that it's probably worth it to explore the parameters of that vision and see if anything can bend and ebb and flow, because it sounds like you really like this person. Sam and I are going to get into that and get into what we think is worth the risk, or how we can sort of shift our perspective into something that feels a little bit more comfortable to explore. But first, we're going to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Like Sierra said, I think that the reality of heteronormativity is wild and it is like very pervasive. And I think that as like a queer person who like knew that I was queer as a young person, it can sometimes be hard for me to understand that like people are still kind of holding on to this idea of like heteronormativity as being the goal, right? Like, and also I totally get that is something that people are struggling with. And I think particularly for folks who can sort of pass in one way, right? Like it makes sense to me that you're like, yeah, well, this is the thing I've always envisioned, right? And so that's always available to me. So I'm sort of always thinking that I could come back to that if I want to. And I just want to name, right? Like that sort of thinking about the inherent sort of like rightness of relationships between men and women and not between relationships across other genders, denies us the opportunity to like live fully in relationship with people. Right? Like this like internalized sort of like heteronormativity, perhaps this like internalized biphobia, whatever it might be, is preventing you from being with this person that you really like, you know? And I think that like, it's such a clear example of the ways in which we deny ourselves opportunity for connection and relationship by deciding that there's like a right or best way for us to be in relationship. You know, like one of the reasons why I was drawn to this letter is because it is such a really stark example of this, right? Like I totally understand. And if you want to be with a man long term and that's like the choice you're making, like you live your life. Like I'm on board with it. And what you're telling us is that like this sort of like hang up that you have around this is preventing you from what you actually want, which it sounds like is a romantic relationship with this woman who sounds really wonderful and great and who you get sad about when you think about the fact that you're not in relationship with her, right? Like I want to like just like name it because I want you to be making this decision about whether or not you want to be in a relationship with Rachel because you want or don't want to be in a relationship with her, not because of this like idea of how relationships should look or what long-term relationships should be like, right? As somebody who's in a queer relationship long-term, I can tell you they work. They're fine. They're great. Sierra's in one too, right? Like they're, you know, like they happen, they can, and like you figure things out as they go along. Right. And so I just want to like name that as a possibility so that, again, so that you can make a choice based on what you actually want and not based on what society or your own sort of understanding of relationships is telling you is the best way to be in relationship long term.
I think if we had a different listenership than what we do, we would sound like gay bullies right now.
I mean, I am a little bit of a gay bully. I don't think that's inaccurate.
But you know what? That listenership turned it off when I started talking about Luca. So
they're like, oh God, why is she talking about Disney movies again?
Gay sea monsters. Anyway,
disgusting.
Just stay in the water where you belong. Anyway, that joke was made to make an actual point, which is, as Sam said, if you see yourself long-term with a man and that feels right to you and you want to explore that and you just don't think there's a future with Rachel, we are here for your intuition. We are here to support your authenticity. And we're also here to tell you, as your two queer family members, that, you know, I too inherited a vision for my life that didn't necessarily fit my authentic desires. And more importantly, it didn't necessarily fit the way my life unfolded. Like, we can't control who we meet and who we fall for and who we're drawn to and who we want to seek connection with. We can't anticipate that. So you could move through your whole life planning to be with a man and identifying with that and having that align with your world and your lived experiences, and then meet somebody out of the blue who changes your whole understanding of the potential for your life. And from this meager letter, Sam and I are just saying, it sounds like you really like Rachel. It sounds like your heart's saying, but wait, I think there's something more here. And I think you owe it to yourself and to Rachel as is to explore that. Guess what? You don't have to be a perfect queer to date in queer relationships. You don't have to be a perfectly healed person to show up and receive love. And you don't need to know what your future is going to look like in order to explore the potentials of now. And I know there's lots of people in the queer community that have a lot of damage around the idea of people trying on the queer experience. And also at the same time, us policing who is allowed to have a queer experience or a queer relationship or not is limiting. It's self-limiting. It's limiting our community. It's a continuation of heteronormativity, and the binary is saying like, oh, well, you have to be super queer. You have to like, no, you're going to be 100% gay to be gay or whatever. It's like, we all know in our hearts, this shit is so fluid, right? This shit is so fluid that it is not serving anyone for us to be like, well, you know what? Our letter writer could date Rachel and that relationship could go great. They could stay together forever, or they could break up. And then one day our letter writer could be with a man, and that doesn't make this experience any less worth exploring. It really sounds like to me that this romantic interest is of interest to you, and you deserve to explore that. And let me just say really quickly, explicitly, because I mentioned it earlier, like I had a vision for my life, right? And I've always identified as queer. I've always identified as bisexual, as much as I didn't like that label. And I too couldn't really picture myself marrying a woman, not because I didn't think it was possible, but because I didn't have the representation in my mind, right? Like I didn't see all of the bridges that would need to be crossed. But it turns out there's only just a couple, right? Like you got to come out to your family. You got to be like, okay, this is a love. The biggest bridge is just saying, I want to pursue this love. This love is worth exploring to me. I'm worth it, right? And I might not have had the vision for what my life could look like now. And that's probably because it's like better than I could have ever imagined. It's like I could have never pictured a love like this. And so let me give that to you as an offering, as like permission to explore, because just because you don't have a vision for something doesn't mean there isn't like magic in that unknown.
For sure. Absolutely. And I, even from my own experience as like a little gay bee, I was like, I knew that I was gay. I knew that I was attracted to men, but I was also like, I'll just never act on that because I need to have a wife and have children, right? Like I totally get it. And then sometimes you just have no other option but to pursue things that seemed like they weren't allowed or that they would never happen to you, right? And I think you have an opportunity in front of you to pursue something that you think might be off limits, but that could actually unlock something that you understand about yourself and could unlock a really wonderful relationship. Because Rachel sounds great. And also, congrats on coming out to your mom.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you for doing that.
Happy Pride.
And I hope that she took it well. Sounds like she did. And like, the process of coming out is a forever process. We're like always doing it. And also like, this is a big step. So take time to enjoy that. And also like go put your face on Rachel's face because she sounds great. Consensually.
Yes. Okay, my darling, I hope that this wasn't too much gay bullying and was in fact just the permission to like be in the moment, right?
Yes.
We love you and we hope this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. All right, everyone. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those monthly office hours, which is when we just hop on Zoom with anyone who supports us on Patreon, and we answer questions in real time. It's super fun. Everyone is amazing. You should join us.
It's the hidden gem of Just Break Up. Y'all don't even know.
Go to patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DM, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music recording, producing, editing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it can't happen. Just because it's never been done before doesn't mean it isn't for you. Life is about discovery and learning from those discoveries. And if all else fails,
just break up.